Hey there, MSPTA Angelina Crittenden here with another MSP lesson guide. So we're still on Unit 1, Oncology, and we're on Lesson 3, Cell Division Models. So for this lesson, we're going to teach the students a little bit more about cells. In Lesson 2, we kind of just talked about how they're the smallest living unit, kind of building block within the body, but we didn't really talk about its inner mechanisms and how cell division works. So in this lesson, we're going to kind of model cell division using clay. So really your materials are just Play-Doh. You can use one or two different colors, it doesn't really matter. You may want to use one color for healthy cells and then two colors if you want to show and the second color, I mean, if you want to show cancer cells, but you can just use one. It doesn't really make a difference. So the vocabulary, we're going to go over healthy cells, cancer cells, tumor, DNA, cell division, and then cell death, also known as apoptosis. So this drawing or this graphic was actually really, really helpful for me. So in this unit, I didn't use slides. I really depended on the whiteboard a lot. And it's really, really helpful for this particular lesson just because of how, complex the topic is. So before you really start getting into it, you want to remind them of what cells are, of what cancer is, and how cancer works. So cancer is when your cells uncontrollably divide and multiply. Now they're going to be like, what is dividing and multiplying? And this is a great way to demonstrate that. So you have your parent cell, and inside your parent cell is something called DNA. Now you don't have to tell them that DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, but if you must, please feel free. But DNA, what I told my students is that DNA is just kind of like instructions that your cell has, that every single cell has. Every single cell has DNA in it, and the DNA tells the cells what to do. So different cells in different places have different jobs, and the DNA in them tells them what job to do. So when a cell wants to divide, what it does is it copies everything inside of itself, including its DNA. So it gets really, really big. And then when it's ready, it goes through something called cell division. So all the copies split until you have two identical daughter cells. Okay, pretty simple. Cell division can be really complex when you learn it in high school and college, but at the end of the day, it's just there's a cell, it copies itself and divides. And you really, really, really want to simplify it for your students the same way. You also want to remind them that the starting cell is called the parent cell, and the ending cells are called the daughter cells. They may get, a little curious and be like, why is it a daughter cell? Why isn't it just a kid cell? Well, that's just the way it is. Anywho, once you kind of explain the concept of cell division and how that works, you can talk more about how cancer cells do cell division, but they just don't stop. They just keep going and going and going and going. Now, why is this bad? This is bad because cancer cells can form things like tumors, growths of flesh, and you don't want those because if you have too many cells in a certain place, they can take up all the nutrients that your other cells need, block certain cells from doing their jobs, and really, really, really just mess everything up for the human body system. So we don't like cancer cells. We don't want uncontrolled division. Okay, so the way we demonstrate this with the students is just having your cell membrane kind of out here, and then, or not cell membrane, but like kind of just like the body. That's what it represents really. And this is your cell. Okay, this is a cell. So what you have them do is I had them start the cell division process by grabbing another piece of Play-Doh and smushing it onto this original cell to make it bigger. And then I had them divide them into these two. And then do the same for those two, to these four, and so on and so forth. So here's a picture of one of my students doing it. So the key for this lesson to go smoothly is you need them to take it one step at a time. So I recommend either putting them in pairs or maybe having the whole table work together. There's enough Play-Doh for every student to have their own kind of, mess of Play-Doh, but I find that my students work well together in groups when there are specific steps that they need to follow, and we all have to do it at the same time as a class. So that's a really, really good method for this lesson that I employed and found was very helpful. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have for this lesson.